Well, hello. Happy Tuesday. Thanks for joining us. We're going to give just a minute or two to allow people to join. While we're doing that, Chad, hey, you were hit by that nor'easter that hit over the weekend.
Yeah, almost 2 feet of snow here in southern New Jersey, just outside Philadelphia, and yeah, took a little while to clean it up all day yesterday, pretty
Yeah.
much.
And isn't there another one coming?
There is, so we're supposed to
Isn't
get
that-
another between 6 and 8 inches is the forecast now, later this week into the weekend.
And the wind also?
The wind, thankfully, has died down. It was almost hurricane force yesterday, 45 to 60 mile an hour winds, and lots of snow drifting across roadways and blowing trees down, power outages, the whole fun thing when it comes to wintertime and blizzards in the Northeast.
Oh, no kidding. And here, I'm in the Midwest in Nebraska where we normally get snow, and it's
Mhm.
been in the 50s and 60s, and it's so dry. So please send it this way.
Yeah, yeah. I was talking to someone from Colorado this morning, and it's just been unbelievable in
Really bad.
Denver. It was
Yes.
almost in the 70s. It's crazy.
Yeah. I'm 3 hours north of Denver, and it's pretty bad. The mountains are bad. It's rough.
Wow.
So anyway, well, just everybody in the Northeast, hunker down, take care, be safe.
Yep.
We always
Yep.
say. Yeah. Well, I tell you what, let's get going.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining today. Thanks for listening to the replay. I'm Vicki Patten with Aptum. We started the channel chat about 5 months ago. This is our 5th episode. The first 4, we really focused around cloud repatriation, what's going on with public cloud. We had multiple speakers talking from different aspects about, why customers are doing that. We do have a YouTube channel if you want to go back and look at any of those to, get some more education on and hear from different folks about what's going on in that world right now. So today we're going to pivot a little bit, and we're going to talk about specifically what's going on in the mid-market space. Because so many of you advisors work with mid-market customers. That's where so much of the opportunity lies right now. And I'm really excited to have Chad Muckenfuss with me today. Chad, why don't you properly introduce yourself, although most people know you, and talk about your journey at Telarus, because you've spent a lot of time with customers and advisors. So let's talk about
Yeah.
that.
Well, thanks, Vicki. Happy to join you on the show today. And sure, a little background on me. So I have been in the quote unquote channel for 22 years now, mostly on what we refer to as the supplier side or the vendor side of things up until 3 years ago when I joined the Telarus team as a solutions engineer. I worked my way through the solution engineering team as a SE for the Northeast. And then I picked up an additional territory, the northern part of the Midwest, and then all of Canada in my journey. And then finally took over as solution architect for the eastern half of the United States for the cloud practice. And then finally, as of October of last year, I stepped into the role that I now hold as VP of Cloud. So I oversee the entire cloud practice for Telarus on a global scale now. So it's been a great journey. I love being on this side. It's been dramatically different than being on the vendor or the supplier side, and it's really been challenging as well as a great growth opportunity for myself. So I've gotten to know people like yourself and many others that are leaders in the industry, and I look forward to today's chat around cloud and the mid-market.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And what I love is that background that you have, because you've talked to so many different types of customers and worked with a lot of different types of advisors as well, and are now crafting the enablement for your advisors, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting because a lot of people ask, "Oh, how has the transition been from the SESA role to the new role here?" The SE and solution architect role is very reactionary, meaning that it's partners sending information in, requests for meetings, discovery calls, interacting, designing solutions, making sure that the right suppliers or vendors are in place to handle what the end customers are looking for, and giving it an agnostic approach to that. In turn, my role now is all strategic. It's where is the marketplace? Where is it headed now and 3 years, 5 years out? How are different things impacting it? Everything from AI to chip shortages to all of that type of thing. And then most importantly is teaching our partners how to sell products that they're not necessarily comfortable selling or opening the door and talking about. So
Yeah.
it's a dramatic difference, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is fun, and that's what today's all about as well.
Yeah.
So, the other thing that I love about what you do at Telarus is the tech trends report.
Yes.
So I know you're working on the new one. The one from last year, there's a big section on it around mid-market. It shows that cloud strategy is the number 3 top priority for your
Mhm.
customers. It also shows that a lot of what we're talking about today, and I'm glancing over at a couple of the charts, cost cutting, cloud modernization, the hybrid work infrastructure, all those things are in those top 6 categories as well.
Yeah.
So why don't we start out by defining mid-market?
Sure. So for me, for us here at Telarus, typically it's 300, 350 people on the minimum side, up to about 2,500 roughly on the top end before you get into that lower end of the enterprise side of things. Mid-market's unique because companies in that space that have that employee count, a lot of times it's based on revenue, which I think you all really kind of focus on from a revenue standpoint, because it's
Right.
hard to balance out truly what mid-market looks like from customer to customer. How do you actually look at that?
Yeah, that's great. And you're right. For companies like Aptum that help customers with their infrastructure and their cloud, it's really about their spend in the cloud.
Hmm.
It's also about revenue. So, but you could have a small startup company that doesn't have a lot of revenue yet, but they have a tremendous amount of spend in the cloud because they're building all their applications in the cloud.
Yes.
So it's not as cut and dry as we'd like it to be. And,
Right.
it's not necessarily number of locations, it's not necessarily number of employees, but also using the numbers, you mentioned of the, 350 to 2,000 employees. That's probably going to put us in that $10 million to $1 billion kind of revenue range
Yep.
that we see as mid-market as well. So good. So now that we have our arms around that, we think we do. Um, there's there's a whole view into the mid market and the advisors and what you're talking to the IT leaders in those accounts about. So what are the sort of the top things? We just talked about what's in the report, but what are the
Sure.
conversations you're having with your advisors?
So I think budget drives everything. Budget drives the conversation. A lot of times, that's what opens the door most of the time for partners, unless there's a specific need for a product set or a change in product. So budget is what keeps IT directors, CIOs, CISOs up at night, is because they're looking at getting the best value for the money that they're spending. A lot of them in the mid market are being held accountable by private equity on the smaller scale, by boards of directors, that type of thing on spends. And it's very, very, very focused and under the microscope, for lack of a better term, to what are you spending money on? Why are you spending that? What are these big numbers that we're spending in the public cloud or the hyperscalers like in Azure or AWS or Google Cloud or Oracle Cloud?
Mhm.
Those big cloud spends are looked at and saying, yes, it's a cost of doing business, but can we do it any better? Can we do it cheaper? Do we have to have everything in those hyperscalers, or can we look at other options? And that's a really good open door for partners to leverage a conversation about, and we're going to get into this and throughout the conversation here, but
Yes.
FinOps and hybrid cloud models, and really looking at the business needs versus just spending money in cloud in that area.
For sure. And a lot of the conversations are business conversations, right?
Yes.
They're not necessarily about the technology. Knowing what they
Nope.
have is obviously a good place to start. Come in with that knowledge, but it's a business conversation. So, let's dive into that a little bit. Obviously, everybody is talking about and thinking about AI right now, and
Yes.
that is having a lot of impact on what customers are looking at for everything, for their infrastructure, their security, their network, and their data. Why don't we dive into that a little bit?
Yeah. So I had a call this morning, and I'm on East Coast. So I had an early morning call this morning, and this is an eye opener. And we haven't talked about this, so I'm just going to put it out there. Um, we had worked with a customer for quite a while. They had refreshed some of their hardware last year, beginning of last year. So over a year, a little over a year ago almost, they had refreshed a big part of their stack between the servers, compute, RAM chips, flash, all of those types of things. They spent about $380,000 roughly to upgrade that part of their stack that they needed to upgrade. We are doing phase two, and we're pricing all of that out. And I reviewed the budgetary numbers this morning on that call. It was a little over $1 million for the same stack, the same
Wow.
memory, literally the same exact replication of what they did a year ago.
A year ago.
Went from 380,000 to $1 million. And you know why? AI. There's no chips available. There's no RAM memory available. There's little flash memory available. All of these things are being gobbled up by everybody that wants AI and is pushing this forward. And I think what
Hmm.
a lot of customers in the mid market, especially, are looking at is they don't even realize that that's happening necessarily because they're so focused on putting out fires. They have smaller IT staff, so they're moving here, there, and everywhere, wearing multiple hats, doing multiple things. They're not paying attention to the marketplace and where things are when they're ready for that hardware refresh. So what that cost factor that I just mentioned is driving is that hybrid cloud model now. Instead
Yeah.
of us as a company, as an end customer, buying and maintaining that hardware, they're leveraging private cloud to replicate that. They don't have to worry about upgrades. It's all a part of that private cloud agreement, and it's a fixed cost. It's a
Yes.
fixed cost compared to the hyperscalers that we just talked about. So what that's driving in the marketplace is again, and you touched on it in the intro, but we refer to it as cloud repatriation. It's not necessarily that overall, but it's a move from key applications that are used day in and day out that are costing a fortune to leverage a lot of times in the public cloud, hyperscalers. They're moving at to a private cloud model, still leveraging the hyperscalers for the Microsofts and Azures for 365 and all the things that they utilize there. But the private cloud application stack gives them a fixed cost and goes right back to that budgetary conversation again to say, yeah, we're spending a lot over here. Let's look at this migration. We're not going to have to worry about huge costs to upgrade hardware. That, by the way, chips are not available until post Q1 of 2027. Every
Crazy.
chipset, RAM memory, et cetera, is sold out for the year, this year, period.
Crazy.
So it's a mess, and a lot of companies are leveraging private cloud to resolve that.
Yeah. And that's the business conversation is starts with really understanding what you have, right? And to your point, they're busy keeping the lights on. They're busy putting out fires. They don't always have the time to do that proactive outreach. Um, so that would be the conversation about the time, the budget, the skill set, um, and what are the opportunities there for suppliers to come in and for advisors to come in and help those customers.
I think that's a key thing is, one of the things that we preach at Telarus is those smaller IT staffs are pulled in so many different directions and stretched so thin. And if somebody's
Mhm.
out sick or somebody's on vacation, it's even worse. A lot of companies are looking at leveraging a co-managed model. And I think that that's a key factor in, not only are they looking at cloud spend, but they're also looking at their day to day. And in order for them to really focus on what the company leadership wants them to do and get done, and new projects, is if they can offload the day-to-day tasks that chew up a majority of their time and efforts. A lot of times what we see is a situation where all of a sudden that spend, again, of more of a fixed cost than a one that fluctuates all over, and significantly less expensive than hiring full-time employees to take on those roles that a lot of times are 12 to 18 months, and they're on to something bigger and better.
Yep.
That's a frustration for a lot of companies too. So that co-managed model of being able to offload the day-to-day tasks, offload the things that you don't necessarily have competency in, and leverage, organizations like yourself to be able to step in, take that over, handle it, and still be focused on what leadership wants you to focus on, is a really, really key factor in the mid-market for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So let's just, for the folks that are out there, chime into the chat anytime you have questions. But at this point, do you have customers that are rethinking their cloud strategies this year? Pop that
Yeah.
into the chat if you
Yeah.
do. Anything you want to be talking about?
It's
I know.
it's a common conversation, so I'm sure a lot of people are seeing that and having that. It's interesting from my standpoint, as we're waiting for some of the chats to come through. What we have is, I don't want to say complacency, but the hyperscalers were an easy solution coming out of COVID. And I know we're many years past that now, but we're not from a technology standpoint, meaning that, everything was pushed to the cloud, everybody went remote. And now, it continues to be a conversation of, why is our spend so much? Why do we have to spend all of this money with Microsoft specifically, or one of the other ones? They understand the need for the Microsoft applications. They don't necessarily understand the need for Azure and having servers and all of the storage and everything that goes along with that. And again, that hybrid cloud model is a daily discussion for us at Telarus.
I bet it is. And that's obviously what we talk to customers about all day long as well, since that's what we do here at Aptum. But back to your point around managed services and MSPs and co-management, a lot of partners and a lot of customers think it's all or nothing, because that's how it used to be.
Yep.
If you had Azure and you were spending $10,000 a month, then you were paying 20% managed services. If your bill went up for consumption, you're blowing up for managed services or for private cloud. A lot of customers at one point were like, okay, I'm using your infrastructure, but I'm not really getting the value out of the managed services. Right. So it's really changed. A lot of companies have pivoted to offering different types. So why don't you talk about that? Because I know you have some really good talking points around managed
Yes,
services.
you and I have had these conversations in front of customers and partners. And, one of my talk tracks specifically is in and around insource, outsource, co-source. Those are the three options that are in front of end customers. And their choice really needs to be, what are they tolerant and able to handle from a business perspective? What are they falling short on, whether it's knowledge base, whether it's ability to handle tickets, all those types of things. And then what do they really want to gain, to your point, from a value perspective of what they're paying for? So those three key factors go hand in hand with, if I'm going to keep everything in-house and I'm going to insource everything, then I need to have those full-time employees. I need to have the expertise, whether it's contracted, whether it's in-house, whatever that is, on everything, the applications, the core operating systems, all those types of things. I need to have all of that in-house versus outsource everything. Typically, it's just an IT director and or a CIO, CISO that just outsources everything, and everybody is responsible for SLAs and all that different type of thing. But what happens in those models is vendor sprawl. So now all of a sudden, instead of having a few key vendors that are handling cloud, IT, all that type of thing, you now may have, 8, 10 or more vendors in an outsource model that are all over the place, and costs begin to explode there, not just from a cloud perspective, but just a day-to-day perspective. The co-source model seems to resonate, and it has superseded by far the other two. So what we have is now IT teams that are lean, but they understand the value of what that co-sourcing or co-management means. Is the traditional help desk, I need a password reset, I need all that kind of stuff, is offloaded. All the patching of the servers and PCs, desktops, laptops, etc. The management of all of that, meaning security, a lot of times is remote monitoring, all that type of thing is all offloaded. So again, the internal team that has the business directives, that has all that type of thing, that should be paramount to what they're focused on, can now
Mhm.
actually focus on that, and they can work on all of the tools and bettering things, not only internally but externally to their customers. So
Yes.
it's been a great model, and it definitely has exploded over the last 3 years for sure.
Yeah, I love the way you break it down, and there's still those customers that just don't want to let control.
Yep.
So the co-management model gives them still the control
Yeah.
in the decisions, but not that day-to-day patching and updating and fixing something that goes down in the middle of the night, managing the alerts and all of those types of things that they can then get off their plate, know that their provider is going to take care of that, and still be able to go innovate. Like you said, pay attention to what the business wants and help the business see the IT group as more of an innovator and a leader and a business tool as opposed to a cost center.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. I mean, it needs to be viewed as a tool. That
Yep.
co-sourcing or co-managed model needs to be viewed as a tool, and not a cost center, because ultimately it's a cost savings in most cases, and it absolutely enhances productivity across the board.
Oh, for sure. And to another point you made earlier, the monthly recurring fee is often, take that times 12, right?
Yep.
Much less than a full-time employee
Yeah.
with the technical skills you need, benefits, and all the things. We just quoted one recently that would have been a third of the cost of one full-time systems engineer to help
Yep.
keep the infrastructure, like a server architect, something like that.
And the more technical staff you need, the higher that cost gets.
Yes.
And there's a lot of organizations, Aptum too, that brings a lot of expertise to the table that you could never buy as a full-time employee hire.
Right.
That you have teams of people that have deep understandings of cloud, both private cloud and hyperscalers, and all different aspects of experience that you can bring to the table, as opposed to hiring one individual that's bringing one set of skills to the company. It's really a much better model overall, not only just from a cost
Yeah.
factor, but just an overall support factor.
Yeah, for sure. So now let's talk about I'm a TA, I'm going out in the field. Let's talk about the kind of questions I'm going to ask. And I'm going to start with one of the things I always encourage our advisors to do before they go meet with a customer is go look at their career section,
Yep.
see what types of roles they're hiring for. And if they're hiring public cloud architects, if they're hiring storage engineers, uh, that is a conversation about why are you hiring them? What are they doing with those? Let me hand it over to you about, you know, triggers that customers, may be giving out, cross-selling opportunities. So let's start first with, questions around the main triggers.
So one of the key things that I have found, and that I am preaching loudly this year on behalf of Telarus for TAs to talk with, is asking simple questions that you already know are going to be yes answers. And one of those questions is, "Oh, does your organization use Microsoft 365?" 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a yes.
Yep.
And then the follow-up to that from a cloud perspective is, well, how are you backing that up? And then the customer says, oh, that's a part of the Microsoft service, right? No, it's
Nope.
not. So having those conversations, and then they realize like, oh, I thought it was. And that conversation happens not only with just, general people within the organization that you're talking to, the customer organization, that happens on the IT side a lot of times too, where there's an assumption that's made
Yep.
that there's backup or disaster recovery in place because you're a part of those hyperscalers, and it's not. There's retention policies, but that's it, and there's no backup of that information. So
Yep.
leading with a conversation in and around that to get the customer to understand, hey, there's more to this than just that subscription, or for whatever those services are. You need to look at this again from a business conversation. Like, how are you keeping all of that information backed up if there's an issue? Microsoft is famous for having outages, just like AWS, just like, any of the major hyperscalers have. It
Yep.
happens. And how are you protecting your business when that happens? Not if, but when. And building that business conversation for TAs to have, as opposed to, I can save you 15% on your cloud bill.
Yeah.
Like that type of sales model where, it came out of the telecom era of, I'll get you 3 options and, we can go with the
Yep.
best price and it's all the same. That doesn't work in the industry anymore. Customers don't want to hear that. Customers don't want to see that. They want to have, to your point, business discussions. They want to understand to the best of their ability what that product is and how it's going to work and benefit their organization.
Right. And now that's part of the co-selling too. When you're talking about
Yes.
if the customer is bringing in new software, it is going to impact their infrastructure, their business continuity, their security. All those things need to change. If they're buying new circuits, let's go down that path, because a lot of the advisors, they've been selling circuits and network for a long time. I know of advisors that are selling direct connect to public cloud, but they don't know what's going on in public cloud. So
Right.
let's talk a little bit about, if you're selling this,
Yeah.
what are the questions you can ask to bring you into that conversation around cloud?
Yeah. So if you're selling that connectivity, and most of the time the customer's IT staff will drive those direct connect pipes, we
Yep.
need to have a direct connect into Azure or AWS. That's where a majority of our applications sit. Okay, that's great. And then that's all that the partner or TA will do is bring somebody to the table. I'll throw Comcast under the bus. We'll bring Comcast in and say, "Hey, I need a direct connect to Azure." Doesn't matter how they get there, or what kind of connection. What are you actually doing? How much speed is necessary? What kind of connectivity do you actually need to run your applications? Is this a gig, a 10 gig, 100 gig? Like, what are you doing? So having those conversations, to your point, and understanding what they're doing and how they're leveraging those public clouds in order to
Mhm.
properly gauge what's necessary from a connectivity standpoint is absolutely key. And that conversation opens the door for that customer now to understand that you, as a TA, know what you're talking about and can potentially help them in other aspects of their day-to-day IT services.
Yes. Oh, for sure. So just a couple of questions will get you there. If they're selling bandwidth, there's data flowing over that bandwidth.
Yes.
Where is it going and
Yep.
what's happening? So we got a really good question. How
Yep.
is AI implementation affecting you as MSPs? I can take the first stab at that, and then as an MSP, and Chad,
Yep.
hop in for sure. For us, it's really about understanding what the customer is doing with AI and helping them have the right infrastructure and putting the data in the right place so that those AI tools that they're bringing in can pull the right data, so they can build the models with the right data, right? So it really is about that all the connection between the platforms that the data is sitting on and the applications driving them and how they're connected. And we're having to do a lot of pivoting. It also depends on the tools they're using. So if they're using, we're seeing a lot more opportunity with Google today because a lot of customers are adopting Google tools. So that's what, as an MSP, we're really helping them understand the implications in the infrastructure and the application development, while, so it's still meeting their needs. All right, I'll shut up, Chad, and let you.
No, you're spot on. You're spot on. I talk to it again quite a bit. Telarus, myself, and Sam Nelson do AI workshops all across the country, and we'll be doing that this year. And that's one of the key parts of this conversation is data readiness. I use examples that we've done of complete ground up builds on LLMs and that type of thing. And my glib response is garbage in, garbage out with AI. If you have really bad data sets or the data is corrupt or there's issues with it, you're not going to get any valuable information by layering AI on top of that to source through the data that's poor quality already. So data readiness is really, really key in making sure that AI is working and is implemented properly. I think one of the other key things, in my opinion, that MSPs bring to the table is the ability to train the end users in how to prompt and get the right responses for what they're looking for out of those data sets. So if you're leveraging Copilot, for example, and you're in the accounting department, understanding what you're trying to gather and what you're trying to have Copilot do for you in your spreadsheets and Excel and all that type of thing is key to prompting it properly and making it a successful implementation versus a set it and forget it, like, oh, well, we pay for Copilot anyway, let's just turn it on and everybody will figure it out. That's disastrous, and it leads to failure. And the MIT study that we talked about all year last year with AI, where 95% of enterprise AI implementations fail, that's why, is because it was let's turn it on, you guys can figure it out. There was no training, there was no real staging properly to make sure that it was a successful rollout.
Yeah. So every time you're having an AI conversation, you need to ask, how does this impact your cloud strategy? And if they don't know, boy, you are now the expert. You can bring in, your Telarus expertise. You can, reach out to us. So there's a lot of people out here to support, because it can get very complicated, but it's easy. There's a lot of things you can do that we've been talking about today, just to open the door and get you into those conversations, and then bring in your resources to help you where it's over your head. Believe me, I've been in technology and IT my entire career. I very much, my entire career, have leaned on my engineers to help me. I just find the opportunity to bring them in, the smart people like Chad and the engineers. And that's where you really start going deep in the conversation.
Yeah.
So any last words as we're wrapping up this morning, Chad? This has been a great conversation.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I just, reiterating the fact of the simple questions open the doors and make it a business conversation. It's not budget driven. It's not a money conversation. It's a business conversation every single time, and leveraging the relationships that the TAs, the partners have with their end customers, and beginning to build that trust factor and leverage Aptum and Telarus SE team and all that type of thing to fill in the gaps from a technical standpoint. That's one key thing I think to walk away from this is TAs, partners, they do not need to have the technical wherewithal to have those conversations. That's what the Aptum team is here for. That's what the Telarus SE team is here for, to help you through those conversations. They need to build relationships and leverage those relationships to have a business conversation and open the doors.
Exactly. So thank you. Call to action, folks. reach out to either of us. If you haven't already read the tech trends report from last year, it's still very relevant. There'll be a new one coming out this year as well. Always take a look at that. There's so much good information in there for all of us. And reach out to me or Chad or your support team at Telarus for any additional help. So thank you so much for joining us today, Chad. Thanks so much. Great to have you. Always love
Thank you,
chatting
Vicki.
with
I
you.
appreciate your friendship, and I appreciate working with you and
Same.
Aptum tremendously.
Same. All right. Stay safe. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a
Thanks,
great
everyone.
day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.